Ladies and gentlemen, just one phone call, seemingly private, seemingly just an exchange of information. Yet that very moment, when whispered political words were recorded and leaked, became the spark that set Thailand's entire political landscape ablaze. It wasn't a corruption scandal, it wasn't a rigged election, it was an audio clip, a conversation between two leaders, the Prime Minister of Thailand and the President of Cambodia's Senate, that pushed a whole nation into the eye of a political storm. On July 1st, 2025, Thailand's Constitutional Court announced the immediate suspension of Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra. Observers called it the final straw. But in politics, not everything is laid out on the table. What truly shocked the Thai public wasn't just a legal ruling, it was the question, why now? And why did a call with Hun Sen, Cambodia's former prime minister of 3 decades and now a close ally of China, become the center of attention? This crisis is not just a parliamentary showdown. It's a chain reaction, from complex party infighting, public outrage, and the silent role of the military, to strategic moves across the Cambodian border. A nation already fractured from within is now under pressure from without. To grasp the full picture, we need to start with the central figure, the woman caught in the vortex of power, a young prime minister who carries the hopes of a new generation and the heavy shadow of her family's legacy. Paetongtarn Shinawatra is not only the youngest prime minister in Thailand's modern history, she's also the heir to one of the most controversial political dynasties in the land of smiles. At just 38, she was once seen as a breath of fresh air in a political scene long overshadowed by the military and conservatism. But the deeper she stepped into the center of power, the clearer it became. Her family's past, with her father, former Prime Minister Thaksin, and her aunt Yingluck, was never something she could leave behind. The return of the Shinawatra family has always made Thailand's military and royalist factions uneasy. And despite Paetongtarn's efforts to carve out her own identity, championing dialogue and reform, she couldn't escape the label of being her father's shadow. Many saw her not as someone who rose on her own, but someone who was placed there. Her bland leadership decisions and lack of sharpness in both domestic and foreign affairs quickly dulled the image of a youthful leader. When the Pheu Thai party, under her direction, sidelined the progressive Move Forward party to instead ally with military-backed factions, a wave of backlash erupted. The people felt betrayed. Dreams of reform were replaced with backroom power deals. The tipping point came when a recording of her phone call with Hun Sen, the former Cambodian prime minister and longtime Beijing ally, was leaked. Immediately, the public began to ask, who is Paetongtarn really working for? In the conversation, her tone was seen as overly soft, even deferential toward a foreign figure, right as tensions along the Thai-Cambodian border were flaring. To many, this wasn't just a diplomatic misstep, it was damning evidence of her lack of political fortitude. And then, the inevitable happened. Trust collapsed. Less than a week after the leak, public opinion polls showed support for the prime minister plummeting. Across Bangkok, criticism surged. In parliament, allies began to turn their backs. And in the hearts of the people, disappointment was swiftly turning into anger. Less than a week after the leaked recording surfaced, Thailand's political landscape shifted dramatically. The numbers don't lie. A poll by NIDA, one of the country's most respected institutions, showed that only 9.2% of the public still supported Paetongtarn. Compared to the 30.9% she held back in March, this was a staggering decline, one of the sharpest in recent political history. For a government teetering on the edge, the collapse of public trust tends to be both swift and deep. Parties in the ruling coalition, once united to form the government, began to jump ship one by one. Boomjai Thai was the first to speak out boldly. They issued a no-confidence petition and made their stance clear. A prime minister who no longer has the people's trust should not remain in power. Their spokesperson, Bunda Thira, known for her bluntness, emphasized that the country cannot be led by emotion and family calculations. The People's Party, the largest opposition bloc, played a longer game. They announced they wouldn't rush to file a no-confidence motion, but would instead wait for a ruling from the Constitutional Court. If the court suspended the prime minister, they could move swiftly to form a new government without needing to battle it out in parliament. Change through law not violence, was the message. But also a warning that a new chapter was about to begin. Meanwhile, on the streets of Bangkok, anger was rising. Small-scale protests began popping up across the city, led by students, labor groups, and even former Pheu Thai supporters. Chants calling for Paetongtarn's resignation filled the air. Once trust is broken, it's hard to repair. And in that tense atmosphere, a troubling question began to echo. If the government loses its legitimacy, will the military step in? In Thailand, every time political crisis erupts, the shadow of the military quietly looms in the background. History has shown that when chaos reaches its peak, the door to a coup is never truly shut. What began as scattered protests quickly swelled into a sweeping wave of dissent. In Bangkok, thousands took to the streets as chaos escalated. Central train stations, political squares, and the area in front of the government house were flooded with demonstrators, holding banners and chanting for the Prime Minister to resign. Their outrage wasn't directed solely at Paetongtarn. It was also aimed at the compromises Pheu Thai made with military-aligned parties, seen by many as a betrayal of the reformist mandate. Amid the fury, an old name resurfaced. Sondi Limtongkul, the former leader of the Yellow Shirt movement, made a surprise return. Speaking on television, he declared bluntly, "I would not oppose the military taking action for the sake of national stability." His words hit like a spark in dry tinder, sending chills down the public spine. Because when someone like Sondi, a man with deep ties to past coups, makes such a statement, it signals that something may already be stirring in the shadows. The government quickly responded. Deputy Prime Minister and Defense Minister Sutin Klungsang issued a firm statement, reassuring the public. The idea of a coup has never crossed the minds of military commanders. The solution must come through democracy. But for many citizens, trust is not easily restored with words alone. Thailand's history has shown time and again that the military often says one thing and does another. Thailand has experienced 13 successful coups and several failed ones. The military is not just a defense force. It's a deeply entrenched political power, with influence in every corner of the state. When a government becomes weak, divided, and loses public confidence, the military always finds a justifiable reason to step in the name of restoring national order. To make matters worse, another factor is complicating the crisis: Cambodia. Border tensions between the two countries, simmering for months, suddenly flared up at the same time the Thai government began to unravel. A domestic political showdown is now overlapping with the looming threat of a regional confrontation. As Thailand reels from its internal political crisis, tensions on its eastern border with Cambodia have suddenly escalated. A string of major border checkpoints were shut down without clear explanation from Bangkok. The result? Cross-border trade ground to a halt, and people on both sides found themselves in hardship, facing shortages of goods, fuel, and essential food supplies. While Thai media remained vague, Cambodia quickly seized the narrative. Prime Minister Hun Manet made a public statement. Cambodia has never unilaterally closed the border. At the same time, he released documents issued by Thai authorities showing military directives to tighten control along the frontier. It was a move that was both shrewd and symbolic, signaling that Cambodia had no intention of escalating the situation, but was more than ready to push the blame back onto Bangkok. Hun Manet then made a surprising offer. If Thailand fully reopened its checkpoints, Cambodia would follow suit within 5 hours. On the surface, it sounded conciliatory, but in reality, it was a political trap. It boxed Thailand into a corner on the international stage. If Bangkok refused, they'd be seen as the aggressor. If they complied, it would only highlight their internal disarray. Before the public could fully digest this, Cambodian media reignited a detail many had hoped to forget: the leaked audio of the conversation between Paetongtarn and Hun Sen, Cambodia's Senate president, a discussion widely seen as overly conciliatory toward a staunch Chinese ally, and one that happened at a highly sensitive moment. It was like pouring oil on a fire already smoldering between the two nations. The timing, the overlap between domestic turmoil and border tension, raised serious questions. Is Cambodia capitalizing on Thailand's moment of weakness to expand its influence? Or is this simply the inevitable fallout of a government losing its grip? Whatever the answer may be, one thing is clear: Paetongtarn's position is rapidly becoming untenable. And now, a bigger question looms. Who will replace her? And will the next leader have the strength and vision to guide Thailand through this turbulent chapter? As the Prime Minister's position grows increasingly unstable, the question of who will replace Paetongtarn is no longer just an internal matter for the Pheu Thai party. It has become a focal point for the entire nation. Because the next leader won't just be a new political face, they'll carry the burden of restoring trust, stabilizing the country, and steering Thailand out of its spiraling crisis. The first name to surface is Chaikasam Nitisiri, one of Pheu Thai's original 3 prime ministerial candidates. With a strong legal background and a former justice minister, he is seen as cautious and well-versed in legislative processes. But at 76 and with concerns over his health, his chances appear slim. At a time when Thailand desperately needs bold renewal, an aging leader is unlikely to reignite hope among the younger generations, who are now disillusioned and angry. On the other side, Nathapong Rangpanivud, leader of the opposition People's Party, has emerged as a promising contender. Recent polls show him with 31.5% support, the highest at present. Young, untainted, and armed with a clear reform message, Nathapong is gaining traction among the middle class and students, the very forces that have historically driven change in Thailand. However, as he remains outside the ruling coalition, his path to the premiership hinges on major shifts within parliament, yet the issue extends beyond who steps into power. The deeper question is, what will that person do to heal the nation? How will they rebuild public trust, mend a fractured society, and address growing tensions with neighboring countries? A new face isn't enough. Thailand needs a new strategy, a new spirit, and a genuine commitment to break free from the mistakes of the past. Thailand has changed governments many times, through elections, through protests, and even through coups. But never before has the country felt this fragile, where a single leaked audio recording, seemingly private, could ignite a chain reaction of collapse, from government to public trust to border order. A young female prime minister, once seen as a symbol of reform, now finds herself under pressure from all sides. A leadership already adrift is now being swept into a storm of infighting, opposition, and geopolitical calculation, both domestic and foreign. Cambodia is no longer just a name across the border. They are acting like a seasoned political player, seizing every crack in Thailand's chaos. And China isn't staying on the sidelines either. Its shadow looms ever larger behind Phnom Penh's maneuvers. Meanwhile, ASEAN stands uncomfortably on the line between silence and losing control. Thailand now stands at a historic crossroads, to move forward with reform, dialogue, and democracy, or fall back into the tired cycle of coups and backroom compromises. Every path comes with a price, but the choices made today will shape the destiny of an entire generation. If you found this content insightful and thought-provoking, please hit like, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel so we can continue bringing you honest, in-depth analysis of the major shifts shaping our region and the world. Thank you, and see you next time.